the Seton Rivals podcast, where each and every week during football season, we get after it. We talk about the ins and outs, some X's, some O's. We talk about players, coaches, the whole 9 yards. And we've been doing it for, this is year 13. It started off with 6 schools and it has now grown to 8. And it's really something special. And yes, this year there are some changes, and there'll be some changes hopefully throughout the year, perhaps a different location. We'll be bringing you some different type of content. But as you can see right on the screen, I've got the Chandler-Hamilton rivalry in front of me. Yes, one of my co-hosts went to Chandler, the other went to Hamilton, and we introduced Adam Beadle. We had a little flavor of him early in the calendar year. I can't recall if it was March, April, May, somewhere in that range. But Adam Beadle, yes, you are on board with Seton Rivals.
I don't. Andy's gone.
He had enough of it.
just like Hamilton post 2014 against Chandler, just disappears. We'll see him in 7-8 years.
Absolutely. Well, Ralph, I was going to let Adam talk a little bit, but you and I, and yes, while we wait for Adam's return, what a ride it's been. 13 years strong, and I think about we've gone to WNBA together. We've hopped a plane to go to Colorado for a Rockies game together. We've gone through some ups and downs. We've seen these schools go through some ups and downs, but in the end, we have stayed true to, I'm going to say, the borders of Chandler, and I feel we've served the city very, very well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a special place. Even, if I can't be there right now, it's where I was raised. I love the people. I absolutely love the energy of Chandler, and I love the way that the community invests in itself. It's a little bit of Texas outside Texas. Like, people support high school sports. They support track. They support football. We've got about 50 million basketball championships in a row. And yeah, it's a little suburb east of Phoenix, but here's the deal. It's something about that city, whatever you want to say, whether it was the fact that you had enough people that were in that sort of farming community, that generation after generation after generation, kind of helped keep the town together, even with all the influx of people moving for Intel jobs or apartments coming in or whatever else it may be. The people on Oakland Street have always been willing to go out there, have a barbecue, party, watch the Wolves, whether or not they're good. The addition of Perry and Basha has really just shifted the entire landscape of what just used to be corn and cotton. And now, you got kids being raised out there, and that's going to be their formative memories out in the Southeast Valley on the Gilbert and Queen Creek border. And with the addition of, Casteel and ACP over the years to what we've covered, just so many more people get to experience what makes this city special. And it's been a lot of fun covering prep sports, youth sports in the city alongside you, for 13 years.
It's been, time flies. And we started at a picnic table in your house. And it's as crazy as it sounds. And COVID, of course, 2020 was a very rough year. That's the year that made us visible. And that's the year that really, I can't say it's the year that got us going, because, this podcast certainly was very much in full motion beforehand, but it was a time in which Zoom calls became really the norm with how folks handle business. And with now people see, oh, hey, those are those guys who were talking bad about Perry back in 2017 or 18, or hey, yes, those are those guys that have been on the sidelines since 2012 and 13. I think the cool thing is we have outlasted so many coaches and so many cycles, and we've seen that. We've seen Perry rise upwards and then slope down and back up. We've seen Basha have some terrible years, but we've seen them win a state championship. We've seen the run for Chandler, which is just, if we look back on that, Ralph, it's like, God, they won it 5 straight years. comfortably too. I mean, it wasn't one of those things. I mean, yeah, they had some certainly close games, but there was a time we were talking about, can they beat Hamilton's record of 53? So, I mean, we've seen it all. We've seen numerous coaching changes with the two smaller schools that we'll talk about. So it's fantastic.
Absolutely. And before we go any further, and I do love, like, there's nothing better or funnier to me than getting 2 seconds into a brand new season of this podcast and having our new co-host's computer crash on him. That makes me so happy. That's very funny. We'll work on getting him back on here. But before we get Adam Beadle back, who is Chandler through and through, is somebody raised in the city. Like, this podcast has been going since he was in first, second grade.
Isn't that crazy?
It's awesome to have him be part of this. But there are a few people who have kind of been there with us along the way. And one of the people I kind of want to salute is Terry Locke. Terry Locke worked for the Chandler Unified School District. He might have been this podcast's biggest fan, maybe only fan at times. And he passed away last month, I think on vacation in Las Vegas. And he was just such an awesome, awesome supporter of everything we do. He made our lives easy. Anytime I ever needed anything, sometimes he'd be my source for who was applying for different coaching jobs. Wow. Sometimes he'd be my source for different restaurant recommendations. He was a huge foodie. But man, I'm not sure, even though we do this podcast and we've done it for a long time, I don't know if anybody in my time doing this or before or after, outside of maybe Dr. Camille Casteel, loves the city of Chandler the way that Terry Locke loved the city of Chandler. And so he is going to be very, very sorely missed. And one secret that I've been keeping for a really, really long time is Terry Locke had a burner on Twitter, formerly Twitter, now X. And every once in a while he would reply to me from that burner. And I want to read something. I mean, it's really, really simple advice. It's nothing too profound, nothing life-changing. But once a long time ago, I tweeted, "What's the best professional advice you've ever received?" And I don't know if he ever knew that I knew it was him. But he wrote to me from his burner, "Never make decisions when you're at a frustratingly low point or when you're at a high point." And man, that just in my experience with him, that summed up the way that he went through everything. You know, these schools had ups and downs with their coaches, and it's very, very important to these families, for everything to be good always, their school, their team, everything to serve them. And he existed to help make sure that the Chandler Unified District, to the best of its ability, was serving all of these kids and was serving all these families. And he never really got down when things were hard. And even though things were very good for a very long time, especially with Chandler Unified School District athletics, he never he was never out gloating or anything like that. He recognized that Chandler was bad for a long time. Perry had lulls, Basha had lulls. He was always just super grateful for any attention that we gave the district, and for any opportunity to listen to people who loved the same things that he loved, talk about those things with joy and humor and all that. So, man, I'm going to miss Terry Locke so freaking much. And if we don't have anybody listen to this podcast anymore, that's because he's gone. He might have been our number one fan, and man, he's going to be missed.
I mean, I'll say, I mean, yeah, what you're saying, I mean, the people who listen, it's a passion. I mean, the passion has certainly shown on us, and just from the CUSD, which obviously has, we'll say 75% of the podcast, and that's a huge representation. They've been good to us. And yes, he certainly was a major part of it. And I mean, we look back on Brian Winfrey, who is still with us, who very much is a part of and still will be a part of Valley Christian, and just what Seton Catholic has done. I mean, Mr. Sherbridge over there, the AD now, is a big supporter of us. So it's good stuff. And we'll kind of slide it over to Adam. And Adam, I'm thinking you're back. Hopefully we didn't offend you, did we?
I do not know what just happened. Like, I just moved into a new apartment not too long ago, and legit everything just crashed out of nowhere. So
That's
still trying to get.
Man, we set you up.
I'm still trying to get my computer and everything back online. I don't know what is going on right now.
Well, you're back online with us, and just kind of sum up what you've been doing the last couple of years, just kind of your huge interest in local sports and obviously ASU sports. I mean, that's the one thing you and Ralph have in common. ASU, that's Sun Devil love. You differ in your high school alliances, but just tell me about ASU and just a lot of stuff that you're into.
Yeah, so I've actually ASU. I've grown up around ASU all my life. I've grown up around Arizona State football. I know a lot of people probably know the Stomp the Bus intro that ASU plays before their games, where Sparky walks in and he stomps on a bus. My dad is actually the one who helps make that every single year. So I've been, getting to see that whole process and how that's made, and just through the years, whether it's been 3D or on a green screen, and so that's kind of just ignited my love for media, I should say. And then what really ignited my love for journalism was just growing up watching, ESPN, College Game Day, and all these, sports broadcasters and all that. And so I started getting into high school. Started at a high school radio station in Mesa called 887 The Pulse. Did some really cool stuff there. Was able to really get their sports department going, kicking things into groove, and that's how I got into covering Arizona State, and really digging into the high school scene. And I just kind of started talking about high school because I was a high schooler too, and it was just relevant, and I knew that the people that were tuning into my show wanted to know about high school sports. And throughout the course of that, I kind of just ended up falling in love with high school sports, and loving all the people and all the relationships and all the coaches and just everything I've built through my relationships with Arizona high school football in particular. And so really it's just what's driven me to where I am now is just honestly just the love of the game, just loving who I cover, what I cover, and why I do it. And so it's been quite the journey. But now I'm at ASU and trying to get my degree in sports journalism, and covering high school, covering ASU, and just doing all the above and just having fun doing it.
That works. Next week, we obviously will go in depth on all 8 schools, but I certainly want to get both of you guys' opinion next week on the Sun Devils, the objective opinion of how far they can go, what they're about this year. It's now football is certainly upon us, and as we begin this podcast, we start off with 2 teams, but we'll start off first with the 3A Valley Christian Trojans. Last year, technically on paper, I guess they were 3-6, but I'm going to say 4-6. One of those wins was by forfeit. It was their first losing season since Jeff Rutledge's last season of 2017. This year, they open up at home on a Friday night against Sabino, a team that was 3-7. Adam, this is our first time really talking with you about Valley Christian. Something we never really do, predictions or anything of that nature, but just give me a general overview of what you've seen of the Trojans over the last handful of years.
Yeah, it's kind of been it's odd to say it's been a while since Valley Christian has kind of been at the top, because they've been in the playoffs the last couple of years. Obviously, I think last year was a pretty down year for them, but you look back just 2 years ago, this is a team that was making a run in the 3A playoffs, and we're really just fighting. I think going into this season, I see a Valley Christian team that's strong. I think that's the word I use to describe this Valley Christian team. They've got a lot of good size up front. They've got a hidden gem in Caden Palmquist, who's only going to be a sophomore this season, and that's really going to be the X factor for this Valley Christian team this season. That guy's just an absolute monster. And I think the thing that always sticks out about a Valley Christian team is that they're so well coached. Jake Peterson just does an amazing job with this team year after year, no matter what kind of guys he's got on the roster. But I think this year in particularly, Coach Peterson has got a really strong group of guys that I seriously think can make a serious run for a 3A state championship.
And Ralph, indeed, this is something that we're not used to. The last handful of years, we've been, I don't want to say spoiled, but we know that VC was always a playoff team. It's been a long time since they've been that quote unquote mediocre program. And hopefully this is just an aberration.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that they actually start to benefit from having a feeder junior high program. You can't expect teams at the 3A to be good every single year, because when your participation is 40 to 50 guys in your program, one very good player can make a massive difference. And we've seen that with Valley Christian over time. Remember when Elijah Gamage was there for his freshman
Wow.
and sophomore years. There's not many 6A or 5A programs in the state where somebody can come in as a freshman and sophomore and make that level of impact on both sides of the ball. And that's why I love the fact that Adam brought up the fact that they had a sophomore 6'3", 225-pound two-way player in Caden Palmquist. A player like that can make a massive difference. Now, the other interesting thing about this roster is we're looking at a roster that maybe has like 5 or 6 guys that are over 200 pounds, and so you're going to have some you're going to have some 190 linemen.
True.
It's going to be it's going to be interesting for Valley Christian, and the fact that they open up against a Sabino program that is in the exact same position as them. They have this great reputation in 3A, but they're coming off a down year. That's like a narrative season tone setting first game. That's a great first game out of the gate.
And the one thing that is consistent with Valley Christian, they've got another Hansel, Asher Hansel, a wide receiver. That those names run deep. There's a handful of names that it seems like has been on the roster, that last name, for really every year that we've covered it. So, I mean, Valley Christian truly is a family affair, and I think we're in agreement that, yes, they will win more games this year than last year. And, yes, Jake Peterson, extremely a solid coach, really good coach, actually. So, yes, they're certainly going to move upwards. Another 3A team, first time that we get to talk about Seton Catholic. They had been at the 4A ranks the last handful of years. Ralph, this year they dropped down to 3A. Optimism says they can really succeed. They lose quarterback Chase Dixon and running back Luke Aguiar to graduation. But this is a 4A team that made the playoffs last year. They gave 5A Ironwood Ridge a run early in the season. Kids are starting to come out. Pete Walheim has a bigger roster than he had a few years ago, and we'll see. But I think playing that 3A schedule certainly helps them.
The way that they established the run last year was fantastic. They're going to miss Aguiar a lot, but at the end of the day, you set the tone that this is the way your offense is going to be run. And then you open up the season going too eager to the Round Valley Dome against a team that has been probably top 5 most dominant of the lower levels when it comes to the running game. You got to go in there. You got to show them that it's not about Aguiar. This is the tone that you have set for your program. You are going to run the ball. And then the new and improved machine is they're old school. You know, they went from that high flying offense and being able to use Antonio Campanella in the running game to really just being a smash mouth run team last year. And they really got the job done. If they had to give their feature back the ball 25 times, they're going to do it. And I love when a team's not afraid to do that. This is where we've always wanted them, was 3A. We wanted them 3A with Valley Christian. For the longest time, there was sort of that ruling that if you were a private school, regardless of what your enrollment dictated, they're going to bump you up one level. That's what put Valley Christian at 3A. That's what put Seton Catholic at 4A. And we really ran into not that I want things to be set up for the teams that we cover on this podcast to dominate, but when we started, they were very good and very competitive. When they moved up a level, it got a lot harder. I'm not saying that they should be put in a position to go undefeated and win championships every year. That's not what was going on back then, but I want to see playoff appearances, and I think Seton can do it in 3A.
Absolutely. Adam, your thoughts? I'll ask you. Pete Walheim, he's been coaching longer than you've been alive. I believe he's had a couple stints at Seton Catholic. He obviously was over at Highland. He's a guy with a lot of wins, and I like what he's doing over at that program.
Yeah, no doubt. And I agree with Ralph. You know, the move down to 3A for Seton, I think something that everyone's always wanted. I think it's going to be unique to them for them to play the kind of competition they're going to play after having to play, some harder comp in 4A. It's also going to make the whole Seton Valley Christian rivalry just 10 times better now that it counts as a conference game. I think something, though, although I think going into the year, Seton will be one of the favorites to kind of make the run for the 3A title. This is a young Seton team. Coach Wilhelm told me on Saturday that all 5 of their starting offensive linemen are sophomores.
Whoa!
So that's going to be something to watch out for. They've kind of gotten unlucky with a couple of injuries preseason, but we talk about how much they're able to run the ball. That I think that has to be questioned just a little bit, just because of the youngness of the trenches.
Grow them up quick. Tell them
And
to hit what's
so,
in front
yeah,
of them.
part of kind of what he was saying was just you kind of just have to hope and pray that they learn quickly, they adapt quickly,
And
and
stay healthy.
that is something I think that won't be a problem at all for Pete Wilhelm coach team. He's been able to mentor and coach up so many guys in the past, and I just think they'll continue to do so. It might be a little bit of a shaky start, but no doubt that by the end of the year we're going to be talking about Seton and making a deep playoff run.
Good.
And hopefully talking about Sloan Sweet in competition for 3A Defensive Player of the Year.
Absolutely,
That's right.
absolutely.
That's exactly right. I mean, I think with Seton Catholic, all they need is one more stud, somebody on that roster to step up to be an Aguiar, to be a Luke Campanella. And next thing you know, I'm saying Luke Campanella, Antonio Campanella, and things can really go their way very, very quickly. So we'll see how the red and gold goes, because it'd be awesome to be able to call them the machine again. That's for sure. Well, the CUSD does not start until next week, but we did want to just kind of touch a little bit about what they're about, and we'll highlight some players next week when we really get in depth and talk about their game preview. But Ralph, let's just start off with ACP, just kind of their strengths and weaknesses. I mean, for me, I just see a lot of blanket question marks. I mean, the main thing moving up to 5A is big. The good thing is they have the offensive guys who are still intact. The big question is, can they do what they did at 5A, what they had at 4A? And that's a big question.
The consensus, I think, amongst people who feel like they know what they're talking about is no. And I mean, if I'm on the other side of that, that's motivation, right? Like I look at ACP's schedule, and it reminds me of the first couple of years of Perry when they were getting their bearings at the 5A level. And this schedule, they got Desert Mountain and Chaparral within the first 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, ACP has to play Mountain Point. Like, imagine 5-6 years ago when ACP was meeting at a converted elementary school behind Floridino's,
right?
You know, with the players smelling pizza muffins between practice reps. Imagine saying that this team someday is going to go toe to toe with Mountain Point. That shows the growth of the Chandler Unified School District, but at the same time, man, that's scary. I'm scared for them. Like this is it. This is how you everything that you do this year is going to echo for generations in that school, good or bad. You are put in a position to, I mean, this year, everyone's going to look at you like, what are you doing here? Your goal might not be to go out and win 5A. Your goal might be that in 2026, when you line up against them, for them to say they belong. And that's really what I'm looking for ACP to do this year, is to go out and say, we were more than just a flash in the pan 2 years ago, you know, appearing in a title game. We're here. We're here to stay. We can handle 5A. We're going to represent the Chandler Unified School District the same way that all these other schools do.
Adam, I'll say two things jump out for me. A, I want to see them grow the way that ALA Queen Creek has grown. Small 3A school, and they've taken their lumps, but now ALA Queen Creek is a bona fide 6A contender. But for me, what stands out, and that'll be a game that I'll attend September 12th when Desert Mountain comes to town. I think if they can hang with Desert Mountain, if they are competitive, that bodes well for the rest of their season. But if Desert Mountain comes in and just kind of has their way, it becomes a very long season for the Knights.
Mike was muted. It's truly going to be an interesting matchup. I think Desert Mountain is a team whose defense has vastly improved since last season. I think Desert Mountain is a much better team this season than they were last year, and I think that's just because some of the guys they've added, some of the growth they've had in the weight room, and guys come up. I think they're going to be really talented, and we talk about the talent discrepancy coming from 4A to 5A. It's going to be tough, and so I think I think if ACP can come into that and show at the least that they belong in that conference. We've talked about for for years. When ACP first came in and on the scene for it, we said it's not going to take long for this team at all to go from 4A to 6A just because of the growth of the Chandler area and just because of the growth of ACP itself. I mean, what their first enrollment, their first year was already 1,500 kids or something like that. So it's not surprising that they are where they're at, and I think just like ALA Queen Creek, they have a lot of support from those around them in that area. Um, but we talk about the game itself. I think what'll be big for ACP in that game is having a strong offensive performance with that defense. And they've already got a great quarterback in Evan Heinrich who's going to be able to kind of facilitate that. And so it's going to be interesting, and they'll be very well coached. Coach Zellner, really looking forward to how he coaches this ACP team.
3 coaches in 3 years. We'll see how the Knights do. And another school that we've seen grow, Adam, is Casteel. The Colts, when we first started covering them, 3A, and now they are a 6A team. Your initial thoughts on what we may see from Joe Bushman and crew?
Joe Bushman immediately comes into this Castile team and brings this college football mentality of this is what it's like to practice and this is what it's like to have relationships and be leaders. I think the one thing immediately that jumps off to me about Castile is their situation at quarterback. Still no official word on T. Smith, who is a transfer from Hamilton, and also Link Frazier, the really talented incoming freshman, making the move to Texas. So kind of leaves a question mark on who exactly is going to be the starting quarterback for Castile Week 1. So I think there's still some questions, especially facing 2 out-of-state teams to start the year. It's going to be potentially a rocky and interesting start for the Colts.
Ralph, Bobby Newcomb has exited, and I think you and I were talking at one point. It's when I say this, and it's weird to say, a breath of fresh air, a different breath in a sense of Bobby Newcomb had his way, and I'm going to say a successful way. He's won a lot of games, but it got to a point where they weren't necessarily moving the needle. Very competitive, but in the end, they were bowing out, usually in round 1, maybe round 2, etc. Now we get to see what Castile is. It's a different regime, and I think a lot of folks in the Far East Valley are looking to see what that new regime is all about.
Yeah, football is serious. Football is serious in the city of Chandler. Football is definitely serious in Southeast Chandler. It's also a game for children, and it should be fun. And I think the complaint around the program for a long time was that this was an incredibly serious program that didn't necessarily do what some of the other schools that take themselves very seriously around the city and around the state have done. And I can understand, that being the modus operandi to get them there. But you have to be excited to put on the pads every single day and play for the people that you're playing next to and the coach that's coaching you and the parents that are in the stands. And there just wasn't a lot of Castile pride. And it was, they had some situations that reverberated over time and really kind of planted a seed of discord and became an issue over time. When you have a coach go to a player who ends up, a Division I national champion, albeit as a backup, and you tell them they'll never even be good enough to play varsity. And, there's a lot of people who remember that happened. Over time, you kind of lose your credibility, and those people go on to have a lot of success. They don't have necessarily anything positive to say about the program, and they weren't necessarily depressed when it came out that there was going to be a transition in the coaching staff. So I think the goal of Castile is to really find the joy of playing football in the state of Arizona, be happy to go to practice, be happy to line up with your teammates. And I hope this coach can give them that.
And I'll definitely say for myself, while I feel I have a good relationship with Coach Newcomb, I'm looking forward to going back to Castile regularly in a sense of I'm not one that really goes to a lot of practices, so to speak, but Joe Bushman has opened up his doors. He he's new. If anything, he doesn't know any better. He's like, oh, all right, that guy reached out to me. Maybe he's cool. I'm fooling him, but no, not at all. I mean, I just feel welcome over there. I think it'll be fun to start a new relationship with someone who's new to the area and someone who really is breathing life into the program. So it'll be a lot of fun. And I tell you, someone else who, as we stay kind of on the theme of new coaches or different coaches, will say Ty Wisdom. I really have enjoyed chatting with him over the last, we'll say, 6 or 7 months. He obviously had coached in the Valley for a while before. He's won everywhere he's gone. And I told him jokingly back in March when I first met him, all right, I've actually never been to a 7 a.m. Chandler Wolves practice, but you've got me going. And I showed up for that jamboree at 7 a.m. He's like, oh, wow, dude, you really did. And so I really enjoy chatting with him. And Ralph, I mean, I think he can do your alma mater proud.
I hope so. I mean, he's been successful everywhere he's gone, and he's done it with outside of really being back home in Nebraska, where he had a very, very talented roster, I think, relative to the other rosters that they were facing. But a lot of the good that he's done has been with, future litigation attorneys and dentists and lawyers and whatnot. He's had some very, very good players, but one of the best coaching jobs I've ever seen came from him going toe-to-toe with a Higley team that had several future NFL players, several high, 4-star future D1 athletes, and like taking them to the limit, taking on a Ty Robinson and a Jason Harris and a Coleman Owen, and really, really like making a game of it. I think that he is a great coach. I think giving him the keys to Chandler High is very interesting because, I think what he's hoping for is for the first time really to have administrative support to try to build a product in the state of Arizona that he feels like he's capable of. And I do hope that they give him that chance. Not that the community is going to like stand losing. I mean, Coach Garrettson won 1 billion championships, and the minute that they, started to hiccup, there was displeasure. I used to sit in the stands to cover games. I would hear the stuff that they would call Sean Aguano when all 3 running backs weren't getting 15 carries each. It's it's a tough gig. It's a community that will support you, and all they want to do is party with you when you win. But they'll let you know how they feel when they lose. And so, my hope is that the administration can back him, because fans are going to come and go. Fans are going to express themselves. Fans are going to expect to win. They're going to expect to be exciting. There's a lot of really great athletes at Chandler High. They expect to play a really specific type of football. And also, he might do something that nobody's ever really done for Chandler before, bring some discipline to the program. Who knows how Chandler can be without 8 15-yard penalties every single game? They might actually go on that run you're talking about. They might win 65 games in a row. But, we're not going to know until he gets the opportunity to really shape and mold this team over a couple of years. And I'm excited to be in on the ground floor and be watching what he's doing.
Absolutely. And Adam, middle of May, the Chandler Jamboree kicked off 7 a.m. You and I both were very impressed with how he ran that practice.
It's a very college-like practice. Again, another coach that comes in and kind of installs that kind of college mentality. I talked to him about that at the CUSD Media Day. And something he told me, and actually some of the other players told me that sticks out to them, is they have this portion of their practice in which they call fire drill. And basically it sounds exactly what it is. There's a fire sound that starts, and for the players, they don't really know what's coming. It could be an 11-on-11 rep. It could be a 1-on-1 rep. It could be, they might do some quick conditioning, something they don't know. And Coach Wisdom uses that as a point of, you never know in a game what could come next, what kind of situation you could be in. So I think just something like that, that sounds so simple, but I think at the same time you can stretch it out and make something so complex is why I think this Chandler team is going to have a lot of success this season. It's because they start building it in practice and they build it in to the year, and just the way their schedule flows out and the kind of teams they're going to play on their schedule this year. And honestly, the kind of talent they have on the roster. This is a more loaded Chandler team than we've seen in the last 2 to 3 years, given we did have a team with Dylan Raiola. However, that's one player. The team had some other stars, Khalil Valentine, but this team is loaded with Division I prospects and other D2, D3 prospects across the board. So I seriously think that Chandler could make a deep open run this year.
I agree. I actually think that, I mean, and I'm not going to open up a can of worms, but if they were fully healthy last year, I think cards play a little bit differently over the course of the back half of the season, and who knows what might have happened. So it's so yeah, I don't think that the Wolves were in as bad of a shape last year as people felt they were. So we'll see how it goes. And another team that is poised for a run, the Perry Pumas. And I'll ask you, Adam. Yes, we know Cale Snyder. He is big. He physically, legitimately, he has gotten big, and no doubt about it, he is QB1. Are there some other dudes who can help the Pumas get into that open? We know the open takes a little bit different shape, but I think we got to see what the Pumas are about, because, I mean, they certainly are trending upwards. They get better and better each year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they've got a ton of playmakers all over. You got to start with the wide receivers. Max Windleshaper, Amos Augustine are two of the guys that I know are going to be big-time playmakers on offense. They had a lot of great plays this summer on the 7th Circuit. Another guy, I think, on the defensive side of the ball that's really going to stick out for the Pumas this year is Ricky Stewart.
Yep.
Pound for pound is the strongest kid in Perry's program, 6'4", over 220 pounds. I don't know the exact off the top of my head, but this kid's a monster. When you see him coming off the edge, he is going to put some fear in some quarterback size and really be a problem for offensive linemen because he's so big, but he moves really fast. And when you're an edge rusher in high school, that's pretty key. So I think with those kind of playmakers and a guy like Talon Frazier, who's going to be playing a lot of both sides of the ball for the Pumas, they're going to have some playmakers to be able to win some games. I think if I'm Perry, though, there's a little bit of a urgency to, like, we have to perform very well this year.
I'll say with Talon Frazier, yes, I'm very impressed with him. And it's funny, Adam, when you said, yeah, when you see Ricky Stewart coming off the edge, when you told me about him, I saw him stand up at media day. I'm like, oh, geez. Okay. I mean, he's a big boy, and he's going to wreak some havoc in opposing backfields. And Ralph, indeed, the Pumas, it is hopefully it's their time to shine.
I hope so. My guy that I'm tracking this year is none other than Perry co-offensive coordinator Jake Ayala. This is somebody who has a lot to prove this year. He's part of the fabric of Arizona high school football. He's out there working with Coach Ortiz, and the pressure is really on. I mean, you got a young co-offensive coordinator with a coach who has high expectations of his offense, with an offensive line coach whose son is the quarterback of the team, who, you know, has multiple scholarship offers, but is only the 7th highest returning passing yards in 6A, and did have almost a 1-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. And, you know, I talked to a couple of coaches I talked to a couple of assistant coaches last year who played Perry and came out of it saying, I was more scared going in than I was during. And so if I'm Perry, and I'm not shying away here. Probably the most negative things that I've said on this show in the last 13 years have been about this school. And I don't want it to feel like I'm nitpicking, but it's their time. Yeah. It is their time. Everybody else took a turn. Everybody else won. You know, ACP, I'm not going to pick on them too much. They're coming off a 4A championship appearance. Casteel came in and they got one right out of the gate, and they went up to 5A and they played against Centennial and punched people in the mouth, and it didn't work out over time. It is what it is. Perry's the one school that had, you know, at times the most, at times the second most students in the entire state. They have a guy right now making $250 million in the NFL. They have several college football players who have, you know, gone on to represent Perry at the next level. They have an excellent head coach. They have an excellent staff. They are extremely talented. It is their time. It's time.
Mm-hmm.
It's just time. And so that's my challenge I'm issuing at the very beginning of the season. Coach Ortiz and Jake Ayala, I want to see them come together to make some absolutely kick-ass game plans, leave no doubt in some of these games, and just have some fun. You know?
That makes sense. That definitely makes sense. Adam, let's hop back over to your alma mater, the Hamilton Huskies. This is a team that reached the Open semifinals last year. I mean, I was very impressed with Coach Dixon, and I think they're ready to reach a high height again. I mean, I think they've got the tools to do it, and it's they're loaded once again. It's going to be a fun year over at Arizona and Ocotillo.
Yeah, I was really impressed by some of the things that Coach Dixon did in his first year at Hamilton. They lose a couple of seniors that played meaningful snaps for him last year, but I think they're going to reload with some young talent. Obviously, the biggest question mark is Jack Scully at quarterback, and I've been trying to do the research. I can't exactly nail it. I kind of nailed it before media day. And correct me if I'm wrong, because you guys probably know them more than I did, but going back in the common max preps era, at least this is two. I think I was able to go back to at least 04. I don't believe that Hamilton has ever had an opening game sophomore starting quarterback.
I think you're right.
So I think that in its own is its own storyline. Is this is something in which there's not a lot of things to go to Hamilton and say they've never done that before. This is something that has never been done in Hamilton. And I think that in itself is a storyline to watch throughout the season is how does a first-year sophomore starting quarterback, a quarterback that has never started a single game on varsity, a quarterback that is coming off a torn ACL, how is he going to perform? And I think he's going to have a lot of weapons. Roy Oliver, of course, is going to be a name to watch for the next couple of years. I think he might have just gotten ranked a 4-star by either 24/7 Sports or On3.
Too low.
Which might be a little too low in Ralph's opinion because
sure.
this guy's a playmaker. But they got some other sophomores too. Keaton Fields, Casey Allen on the defensive side of the ball are going to be studs too. You've also got some big boys up front. Rex Waterman, who's going to Nebraska. Logan Ray, of course, as well. So there's playmakers for this Hamilton team. It's just about how are they going to be able to execute it, and can they take a step up and make it to the championship this season?
Ralph, I'll say as crazy as it sounds, we're saying that it's Perry's time. It's Hamilton's time. I mean, they have not been to a championship game in quite a long time. I think the last time would have been the 2014 game.
2020.
I'm sorry, 2020. Okay.
Yeah.
Seems longer than that. I'll say they have not been to a championship game in a big stadium since
true.
Everybody gets 2020. So it's but yeah, I think it's they've got the guys. I mean, Adam just rattled off a bunch of them. They've got the coaches in place. They've got the good support. Guys are coming back to root them on, that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing the Huskies in action.
100 million% agree. I always love seeing Hamilton do good. I am not a hater. They beat that out of me about the 10th time in a row they beat us, and then it went on 7 more times. I love that they open at ALA Queen Creek. That's serious football right out of the gate. You're going to get
there.
Oh, you are. That's awesome. That's awesome. And then I mean, it's not like it gets a whole lot easier from there, but it's manageable. You know, this isn't Hamilton going out to play the number 12 team in the country. You know, I love that they're kind of focusing local, getting their bearings back, and they're going to earn those trips out of state. They're going to earn those big marquee games. They're not going to rest on past glories. And in fact, there's not really anything to rest on anymore, because if you're talking about just past championships, I mean, Adam, what grade were you in 2012?
I think that was my kindergarten.
Right. And you're out of high school, which means there is nobody in school in the state of Arizona, unless they're doing something very illegal, that has been being educated in the state of Arizona during a Hamilton title run.
Yeah.
Right. You figure I've never seen Hamilton win a championship from a coverage standpoint because, yes, 2012, I was living here, but I didn't follow them. Lord,
I was trying not to give that away, that it's actually your fault.
I
I was keeping that on the DL, and then you brought it up. But no, I would love to see them back competing for championships every single year. Are they going to restore that feeling that existed for about a 10-year span that, like, this is going to be a really, really long night for us? You know, I can name Hamilton's losses, and I wasn't covering high school football at the time. But like 2007 in the semifinals to Brophy, that reverberated throughout the community because that was like there's 5 or 6 NFL players on a roster that might have been talented than all their other rosters.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they still and they still lost the 2011 to Desert Vista. People still talk about that. You know, and so they're you count the losses over about a decade stretch on one hand. They're not going to get, I think, back to that, but they do want to get back to just being competitive, right? Like being a team that if they are on your schedule, even if it's 4 weeks out, that's the one you're thinking about.
Correct.
That's what Hamilton needs to get back.
And I think I agree with you completely. And it's just so odd because you look back at that 2020 season and what Hamilton did to most of those teams that year, except for Chandler. They lost at Chandler on their regular season and lost in the state championships, which nobody talks about how close that game really was. And then you go into the next season and you've got a large Hamilton win game 1 and the craziest upset of all time against Bishop Gorman. And it looks like Hamilton's on this trajectory, and then Devin Dampier comes in and just, silences the crowd. And really, since that game, we haven't seen exactly what you're talking about. So it's just odd to see that dynamic that just kind of went poof and disappeared. And I think absolutely the question is, when is that going to come back?
It's true. Well, I'll say the one team that did defeat Devin Dampier in the postseason, the Basha Bears, in 2022. And Ralph, are they poised to get something popping in 2025? I mean, they're loaded on both sides of the ball. I mean, the amount of scholarship offers it's uncountable for the most part. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, they got the right guys in place at so many positions, excellent coaching staff, as all of these CUSD teams have. I mean, this is going to be a very, very good Basha Bears team. Not to put any pressure on them, but if they don't get to at least the semifinals, this is not a good season for them, and I'm expecting them to go a little bit further.
Yeah, I think 2 seasons in a row of the year sort of ending in a disappointing fashion. I think they thought they had a really good shot against Centennial. That didn't work out at Dobson High School a couple years back in the semifinals. Last year, Gio Richardson goes down in Sun Devil Stadium, Mountain America Stadium, Frank Cush Field, whatever you want to call it. They're not paying me. But so, Gio Richardson goes down. They get a couple of calls that they're not happy with. And then you just get to sit unsatisfied all off season. And then everybody's heaping all these accolades, all this preseason stuff. You win some sevens tournaments. And just none of that matters. None of it really washes away the memory of Liberty coming in there and just taking that game from you. So I think they're finally at the point, because I think the culture at Basha did change once they won a championship. I think they're finally at that point where maybe even if everybody's saying it, they don't feel like the top dog. I think that they do feel at this point like they have something to prove and something to live up to. One of the things that I think maybe Adam turned me on to is the fact that they very much simplified their offense. I'm really curious as to what that means, because if you can keep things simple and you're the most talented, like we just brought up that Hamilton dynasty, like they were running like 6 plays.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Run right behind Tyler Johnstone, run left behind Casey Tucker. They had a 9 route, they had a slant, and they ran a reverse in the red zone all the time. That was like Hamilton's entire playbook.
That's right.
And so if you can make it so that you're talented enough that they can't stop you, you got a couple of plays where you get some people in space, you got a very talented quarterback, you got a great offensive line, and you can go out there and just let people cook. Basha could be very, very good this year, but they have to keep that chip on their shoulder.
Adam?
I talked to Coach McDonald. This is a direct quote from what Coach McDonald told me about what people should expect to see from Basha. And he said, I would like the other opposing coach to say, I can't. I hate playing these guys because how fast, physical, and smart they are. They don't make mistakes, and they bring their best effort. I think if Basha does anything short of what Coach McDonald said in that sentence, that is an unsuccessful season. You have the reputation of all these Division I recruits on your roster. You have the reputation of the fact that you didn't lose a single game this summer through sevens, through anything you played. There are expectations. And to me, that expectation is you go back to the Open Division final. All the cards are there. The offense, I think Ralph talks about the simplicity of the offense. I think that's just going to make Basha stronger. And especially with a quarterback like Brody Veers, who's so versatile and has really stepped up his speed. I think he's probably going to run the ball a lot more this year. And also he's got a lot of weapons. They lose Gio Richardson, but they bring back so many guys like Cash Brock, Jaden Baldwin. They got some tight ends too. You bring in a guy like Dejan Yorborough, who is just an absolute monster on the offensive line to play opposite of Jake Hildebrand on right tackle. The recipe is there, and Basha just needs to cook it up, I think.
And I think they can do a lot of cooking.
Freakish schedule.
That's the point, is they do have one of the most difficult schedules, and they are probably going to have to run the gauntlet. So if they do, and they get out of that without losing a game, or maybe the only game I think I would count an exception of dropping is maybe Orange Lutheran. We get to the playoffs, and I think there's a lot expected that Basha goes and finishes it out and wins the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Hey, loser talk here, but I think it's okay to not be perfect this season, even in state, because the way that it's set up now is it's only 6A that participates in the Open.
Correct.
Perhaps an overcorrection, but progress. And in that scenario, it's all about having that opportunity late. And if you can do enough to have that opportunity late, cool. Like with college football, the more you expand the postseason and the more you restrict the postseason to a smaller pool of teams, the less important the regular season becomes. All still important, all still in the name of preparation. Nobody's going to be more ready than Basha, especially if they get through this season healthy with this schedule that they have.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not really looking for anybody this year, Basha included, to go unbeaten in Arizona. I mean, that's my bold prediction for the whole year, is that we're not going to see it at the highest level. And to me, that's okay.
Yep.
Especially because, I mean, how long have you been watching sports, Brett, where people say, I'm glad I lost, gave me an opportunity to actually address my weaknesses. Nobody's going to take a weakness seriously if you're winning a game by a field goal at the end, because you won.
That's right.
You don't have to take that long, hard look in the mirror. You just wipe the sweat off your brow and go on to the next week. So I think we're going to have some very, very prepared teams throughout the state. I don't think Basha is going to run the table in the state of Arizona. It'd be pretty damn impressive if they did. But that, man, the front half of this schedule is a real challenge. Now, if they go out and they start blowing teams out, then I've been wrong before. Usually when I pick Basha to win games is when I end up being wrong when I'm going up against the West Valley. But I do think this year we're going to see just a bunch of 8-2, 9-1 teams that all go into that end tournament feeling pretty good about themselves.
I think the tournament can be nothing short of fantastic. It's going to be a really good year, gentlemen. Obviously, the upper half of the CUSD is going to compete for open positions, potentially 2, maybe 3 teams in that top 4. You never know who's going to be in that top 12. It's going to be fun. Of course, you're not punished if you make the open and you fall initially. You're back into the 6A, so it's going to be good. And then, of course, yes, we'll look at Valley Christian and Seton Catholic, and hopefully both of those teams can be competitive. As always, this was a phenomenal talk. We will dive deeper in as we get to talk about a couple of results next week, this time opening games for the 3A schools, and then we'll dive deeper into the opponents because, yeah, both Basha and Hamilton have Thursday games next week. He's Ralph Amsden. He's Adam Beadle. I'm Brett Quintyne. We'll see you guys next week on the C-Town Rivals Podcast.